Hello, everyone. Welcome to Resistance Live. It's Monday, December 9th, 2024, and I am ECM. We have actually a lot of stuff to talk about today, most of which unfortunately relates to Donald Trump, but we got a couple other things we got to talk about too. Most particularly, we're going to talk today about the discard phase of narcissistic abuse, because I have big questions about what's happening with Elon Musk right now. And hopefully that will be interesting to everybody. But we have a lot of other stuff to talk about, like Lara Trump and Jim Clyburn and a bunch of other stuff. Okay, first things first, I am coming to you, as always, from occupied Muncie, Lenape, and Mohican land. I am today, for our visually challenged viewers, wearing a light gray sweater. My hair is pulled back. I'm a pink-skinned, green-eyed, dirty, blonde-haired woman, and I'm in my office in front of a bookshelf, and the big cushy chair has made a reappearance, and I'm glad you're all here. Okay, so if you missed it, the reopening of Notre Dame after the incredible fire that almost destroyed it 5 years ago was this past weekend, and Joe Biden was in attendance. So was Donald Trump. And so was Elon Musk. And there was a very strange interaction between Elon Musk and Donald Trump when Elon arrived at the cathedral, where Elon went up to talk to him, apparently asked to sit next to him, and Donald Trump scowled and pointed that way. And Elon Musk then walked away with his head kind of down, away from Donald Trump. Now, I know all of us have been waiting with bated schadenfreude breath for the Elon Trump meltdown. I just want to remind you all that the discard phase of narcissistic abuse is the second stage of the cycle. The first one, of course, is love bombing and idealization, where the abuser goes on and on and on and on and on about how wonderful the person is and how much they appreciate them. And then the second phase is when they start to discard them in order to cultivate a trauma bond. Now, I am not going to sit here and tell you that Elon Musk is a victim in any of this, but I do want to point out that there are some strong indications right now that Trump is kind of getting tired of Elon. And this is very common with narcissists when they hit a phase where they're concerned about someone taking too much of the spotlight off of them. Or, you know, in many instances, there have been some fairly interesting recommendations to start referring to Musk as President Musk as a way to kind of trigger this in Donald Trump. What I will say is that I am not surprised, that I think we're only at the beginning of this, and that there's likely to be a lot more coming in this meltdown. I will also remind you all of what we talked about last week on multiple occasions, which is that Doge, or this, alleged agency, which is not an agency that Musk and Ramaswamy are running, really doesn't have any power. And so the whole thing could vanish into thin air in the space of a minute or two if Donald Trump decided he wanted that, because it is not functioning and cannot function as an agency with any authority without the approval of Congress. So it's going to be kind of a fascinating denouement to this. I'll also add that, as we all know, Elon Musk has his own narcissistic strategies. And so watching all of this at play will be an education, to say the least. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is this interview that Trump gave over the weekend with Meet the Press. Once again, Kristen Welker did not do her job. This will not come as any surprise to anybody who's been watching here for the last few years, because I am not a fan. And in fact, I think that the job that she has done on Meet the Press has been deplorable, to say the least, because she allows Trumpists to kind of come on there and run roughshod over the facts with no correction and no holding their feet to the fire. So we had this interview, and that was the characteristic of it all the way through. But Trump made some statements about deporting whole families from the United States, including those who had been born here. So I want to make something very clear on this front. Birthright citizenship is guaranteed in the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. If you are born in this country, you are a United States citizen. You cannot be deported. And Donald Trump does not have the authority under the executive order power or anything else to decide that people born in the United States to citizens of other countries do not have citizenship here. He's up against an extremely strong legal barrier. And for those folks who might be like, oh, it doesn't matter, I'm just going to tell you that the it doesn't matter thing about this is capitulation. It actually really does matter. It's the Constitution. And unless and until this clause of the 14th Amendment is thrown out, which it honestly can't be, without a constitutional amendment, it's the law of the land. So if you were born in this country, even if your parents were undocumented, you are a United States citizen, and that guarantees you certain rights and protections under the U.S. Constitution. Their claim, and again, this is one reason why I have to remind you all to be very thoughtful about the words that they're speaking versus what they actually have the authority to do. Because just because they're threatening something doesn't mean that it's actually going to come to pass. What they seem to be saying is that if people are troubled by the idea of undocumented parents being tossed out of the United States, even if they've been here for 25 years and they have children in this country, then the children should leave with them. Okay, that is an indication that they want to overturn birthright citizenship, but whether or not they can actually do it is another matter. Now, I do want to flag that there is this bill that has been introduced by Lindsey Graham into the Senate that seeks to redefine birthright citizenship. It is also unconstitutional and it will not pass. Okay. But what it seeks to do is say that you're only entitled to birthright citizenship if your parents are in the country legally. That is against the Constitution of the United States. So even if that bill were to pass, it would not end birthright citizenship in the US. Okay? So again, I want people to be very thoughtful about what they are signaling but versus what is possible. And we stand on democratic norms. We stand on the Constitution. Okay? This is all very, I don't know how to say it. It's almost like they're bluffing. Okay? They can't do this. They might want to do it, but that doesn't mean they can. Okay? And if they start deporting U.S. citizens, we're going to have a real problem. They're going to have a real problem, is all I'm going to say about that. So, all I mean by that is that there will be immediate legal challenges to that. And those challenges will be upheld by courts. Okay, including, by the way, the Supreme Court of the United States, because they're all constitutional constructionists. So I don't want anybody to be panicking about this. All right. And the fact that they are trying, they're saying they want to do it, doesn't mean they can, and it doesn't mean that they will. Okay. He also made some statements in this interview about pardoning the January 6th insurrectionists. So I want to make something very clear. He can pardon anybody who's been convicted of a federal crime. The pardon power of the presidency allows him to do that. That does mean that as long as they are held in federal prison for federal crimes, he can have them released from prison. Now, in the same sentence, he said that members of the January 6th investigation committee from Congress, like meaning Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger and all sorts of others, should be incarcerated for what they did. And then simultaneously in the same breath, he said that he had no intention of arresting anybody and prosecuting them, but he would let his attorney general do what they saw fit. So again, I have to point out, there is no crime that has been committed by the January 6th committee. Okay. They were engaging in a constitutionally, congressionally protected activity. Okay. They can't even be sued in a civil court of law for what they did. And unless there is some separate allegation that they were engaged in an actual crime, there's no basis for them to be arrested or incarcerated or anything else. And I'm going to tell you that if, let's just say hypothetically, Adam Kinzinger was arrested and prosecuted in the district court for the District of Columbia, that case would be thrown out of court faster than you can blink. So again, be extremely thoughtful and use your critical thinking cap about whether or not any of these things that he's saying he's going to do, he's actually going to do. All right. And while I know a lot of it sounds very scary, we also have to be really grounded about what's a trial balloon, what's actually feasible, and what they might actually attempt. Because I'm going to remind you of one other thing. Okay. He signaled when he was running for president in 2016 that he thought women who had abortions should go to prison. We haven't seen that come to pass yet. I never say never, but there are lots of things that he's suggested historically that have not come to pass. And this is one reason why I've been saying from the very beginning of the outcome of this particular election cycle that we need to not spend our time spinning out about all the horrible things that he could do and actually confront the reality of what happens when it happens. In the meantime, we've got to stay present to our organizing in our communities where we live. Okay. All right. That's that. We did have some news over the weekend, which was shocking and really disappointing, that Jim Clyburn is apparently going to advocate to Biden to pardon Trump. I think you all know my thoughts on this already without me saying them, but just for the sake of the record, this is a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea. Pardoning someone who tried to overthrow an election to stay in power is a terrible, terrible idea. Now, I know there are a lot of people in this community and elsewhere that are taking this as a sign of congressional leadership needing a refresh. And I'm not going to disagree with that analysis. Frankly, I think it is time for younger generations of people to step up into senior leadership. This is one reason, by the way, why I'm very happy that AOC is running for the minority position on House Oversight. Having her in a senior Democratic leadership role on the House Oversight Committee will be an incredible pushback against the GOP having a very, very small majority in the House for the next 2 years. So, let's amplify the people who are doing it right, like AOC, like Maxwell Frost, like various other younger folks who are really in it for all the right reasons. And remember that just because Jim Clyburn says he's going to ask Biden to do it doesn't mean Biden will. Okay. But I do tend to agree at this point that there's like a kind of fairly old blue dog Democrat thread through what's happening right now that is of an earlier time. And there is a moment where we need to evaluate whether or not the leaders that are still operating under an ancient set of rules that no longer apply are the right people for this moment in terms of leadership positions within the party. Okay. And I say that without any ageism, but purely from a philosophical standpoint. And again, lots of people who have been in Congress and in the Senate for many, 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 many years are used to a different way of doing things that precedes Trump. And they're not, honestly, at this moment, I think, entirely ready for the shift that needs to happen to push back on what's coming. So we'll see what comes of that, but I don't think it's going to be anything. I know people were outraged, but I really don't think it's going anywhere. And, I know that Clyburn endorsed Biden in 2020, and that was a big flip and a push in terms of Biden's eventual election. That doesn't mean that this idea, which would have it already has an outrageous amount of pushback in the Democratic base, is something that will actually come to pass. Okay, some breaking news this morning that Lara Trump is stepping down from the RNC. This is because she is apparently being considered. Oh, my Lord. There are just moments where we live in this time where I'm like, my jaw is just like, okay, that again, it's just an inexcusable kind of weird moment. She's apparently in consideration as an appointed replacement for Marco Rubio as the senator from Florida, assuming that Marco Rubio is confirmed as Secretary of State. Ron DeSantis is apparently considering Lara Trump for that appointment. She would have to run for re-election at the end of what would have been Marco Rubio's term. I don't know, man. Do I even need to say it? She's entirely unqualified. It's nepotism. It's kakistocracy. It's everything that we have come to expect from Trump and his lackeys. And it would be terrible. And, I don't even know what she would plan to do as a senator, because she doesn't really even know how it works, because she has terrible singing voice. She has no experience in government. Even running the RNC, she was installed so that they could use the RNC as a mechanism for grift. I don't even know. You guys. And I'm also going to say this is unfortunately, one of the lesser threats to democracy that we're facing down right now. So again, something to watch. She's not going to be in charge of the RNC. No idea who's going to be next. Would expect it's somebody who's billionaire adjacent. Let's wait and see. But yeah, that's a little bit of a rough one. Okay. Somebody asked, actually, a number of people asked questions about deleting your information from Meta-based platforms. So over the weekend on our Patreon-only Progressive Coffee Hour, reminder, if you want to join us for that, you can become a paid subscriber at patreon.com/resistancelive for as little as $5 a month. We host a coffee hour pretty much every weekend. And it's an opportunity to kind of ask me anything, as opposed to just purely political based news analysis and legal analysis. Somebody asked a question this morning on the Patreon feed on the tail of what we discussed on Saturday about exiting Meta-owned platforms, because we talked a little bit in Progressive Coffee Hour about why leaving Broligarch-controlled social media is a good idea right now. This morning, by the way, Mark Elias announced that he is leaving Threads for all the reasons that are kind of plainly obvious. Zuckerberg has bent the knee to Trump. wants to be involved in Trump's administration. We know that X is toast, and people are making very specific choices on the basis of perceived safety and also algorithmic amplification or lack thereof to move to blue sky. I'm just going to let you all know this has already happened to some extent, but I'm not planning on being on Threads for in any kind of like prominent way after January 20th. I may choose to leave my account open, but I haven't even decided on that. So if you want to continue following me on social media, like please get on Blue Sky, which is open sourced, run by a young woman as the CEO, and has no algorithm. So there's no concern about suppression of political content or anything like that. It also has robust content moderation, blacklists, very, very solid safety precautions on Blue Sky. Yes, it also means that Instagram is off limits and WhatsApp. And if you choose to do this, it's Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Threads are all owned by Zuckerberg. And many prominent commentators are opting to leave all of those platforms. I have not made a decision in totality about what I'm doing there, but I do know that I'm not going to be hanging out on Threads very frequently. So on that front, and I'll keep you guys posted. If I decide to leave it entirely, you'll have plenty of warning. On that front, we've had questions from some viewers about deleting information from some social media apps. And so I just wanted to let you all know, in case it wasn't obvious, that anything that you've put on the internet stays there forever. This is one reason why I've been cautioning people about what they say, particularly in the context of events like the CEO of United Healthcare getting shot last week, or in the context of accusations of people committing crimes with no evidence. There's no way to completely delete anything. All right. You can, as a preliminary safety precaution, if you want to avoid being targeted, scrub, for instance, your tweets. When I left X 2 years ago, I used, I think it was called Tweet Deleter, and it wiped all of my tweets off of that platform in one fell swoop. And then I locked my account and left it to wither. There are some recommendations about squatting on your name so that no one can take your name and then use it. But that is more significant for people with larger platforms than smaller ones. Okay. I do not know, frankly, if there is, as of yet, a mechanism available on the internet to do that for Threads. And I certainly will be, exploring that, I will say, in the next 6 weeks. And I will let you all know if I find something that is workable for that. But I want to tell you all right now that, apart from anything else, you should all already be off of X. I mean, I think most people in this audience already know that. But if you have not wiped all of your tweets, if you have not wiped your DMs, if you have not left that platform by locking it or completely deleting your account, you should do so now. There's no reason to be there any longer, and there hasn't been for a very long time. And we all know Elon is Elon, and even if he's discarded by Trump, he's in bed with Trump. And I'm sure would have no hesitation about using anything that is located on that platform to weaponize the federal government against someone. So yeah, I would just say it's very important at this point to start thinking about these things from a legitimate safety perspective, but also about where you want to put your attention and your time and your energy. And I will recommend to you all what I have recommended before, which is that any organizing that you are doing should be done offline to any extent possible. You should be organizing offline and face-to-face. So yeah, that's it. That's my recommendation on that front. Okay. Couple of other just quick observations. We are at this point waiting to see what happens with Pete Hegseth's nomination. With the fall of Assad in Syria over the weekend, there is a lot of speculation that Tulsi Gabbard is going to be under tremendous scrutiny in any confirmation hearing that takes place in front of the Senate for the role of the DNI. I think we've got a long way to go on these nominations. And my recommendation for this week is to make sure that you continue to make those phone calls to your senators, even if they are MAGA, to voice your opposition to some of these more outrageous nominations. Like, I really don't want Kristi Noem running the Department of Homeland Security. Kash Patel should in no way, shape, or form be running the FBI. Pam Bondi has major issues as an AG nominee. We all know about RFK Jr. I could go on, okay? But this is the moment to start making those phone calls again, to voice your opposition to these nominations. Just a brief note, by the way, on what took place in Syria. Folks have asked me, I am no expert on Syria and politics there in that location. I will say that we know that Assad has been propped up by Putin for years. He fled to Moscow. It was very interesting to watch the way in which Russian media announced that he had resigned because it was not confirmed by anybody else. It came straight out of Moscow itself. And, this is your reminder that dictators do fall. As for who's going to take up that power void, that is yet to be seen. And, what I will say just from the little that I know about it, there are some concerns about the rebels as much as there were concerns about human rights violations with Assad, although to a much lesser degree. Okay. I personally am glad to see him gone. I am glad to see another person who has been propped up by Putin out of power. And I am watching with bated breath for what comes next. This, again, is your reminder that dictators can be toppled. And in fact, as history proves, all of them eventually are. So sit tight and take what little, cheer you can from that for the time being, and we will watch what happens next. All right. Okay, that's it for today on Monday. I want to thank you all for being here. As always, if you are interested in supporting this broadcast, please consider becoming a paid subscriber over at patreon.com/resistancelive. It's super cheap. Also, please give this a thumbs up. Don't forget to share this broadcast, by the way. Feel free to post it and share it with your friends and in the communities where you're organizing. And drop me a comment if you're watching after the fact, because it tells the algorithm that you like what you're seeing. All right, you guys, I will catch you all here tomorrow at regular time. Hope you're all having a peaceful Monday, and please try to take some time for yourself over this holiday season, because we're all going to need some rest for what's coming next. And I will see you all here tomorrow. All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye.